Halloween had always been my favorite time of year, but after that night, I wasn't sure I'd ever celebrate it again. I should have known something was off when the air felt heavier than usual, the way it clung to my skin like an unwelcome presence. It wasn't the crisp, festive chill that usually filled the October air. No, it was something far more sinister, something I couldn't quite place. I was 17, too old for trick-or-treating, but my mom had asked me to take my little brother Ethan out. He was 9, still innocent enough to believe that Halloween was all about candy and costumes. We'd done our rounds for a couple of hours, and the night had been pretty normal. Crowds of kids, houses decked out in decorations, the occasional jump scare from a neighbor trying to get in on the fun. But then Ethan spotted a house down the street, one that didn't seem to belong. It wasn't decorated. There were no pumpkins on the porch or cobwebs in the windows. It was just dark. I tried to steer Ethan away, but he was insistent. He tugged at my sleeve, pointing at the house with the kind of excitement only a little kid could muster. "Come on, just one more house," he begged. I hesitated. There was something unsettling about that house. The windows were black as pitch, and the only light was a weak flicker coming from a dying porch bulb. Still, I couldn't say no to Ethan. We approached the house, and as we did, the air seemed to thicken. My footsteps felt heavy, like I was trudging through water. Ethan knocked on the door, cheerful and oblivious to the dread building in my gut. The door opened slowly, almost too slowly, and a man stepped into the doorway. He was tall and thin, wearing a long, oversized coat that seemed out of place. His face was partially hidden by the shadow of his hood, but I could feel his eyes boring into us. I didn't know why, but my instincts were screaming at me to leave. "Trick or treat," Ethan said, holding up his bag. The man didn't smile. He didn't say anything for a long, uncomfortable moment. Then he reached out with a shaky hand, offering something that wasn't candy. It was a small, dark object wrapped in cloth. My stomach turned just looking at it. "Thanks, but we're good," I blurted, grabbing Ethan's arm and pulling him away. The man's eyes followed us as we hurried down the steps. I glanced back just once, and he was still standing there, watching, his figure framed by the faint glow of the porch light. The door hadn't closed. "Why'd we leave so fast?" Ethan asked, a pout on his face. I didn't answer. I couldn't explain it, but something was very wrong. As we walked down the street, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being followed. I kept looking over my shoulder, half expecting to see that man in the oversized coat trailing us. Then I noticed it, a car creeping down the street behind us. Its headlights were off, and the engine made barely any sound. My pulse quickened. I tugged Ethan closer, trying not to scare him. The car followed us at a distance, keeping pace with our steps. I led Ethan toward the brighter, busier part of the neighborhood, where more kids and parents still milled about. But as soon as we turned a corner, the car sped up, cutting us off at the end of the block. A man stepped out of the car. It was the same man from the house. My blood turned to ice. "Ethan, run," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Now." He hesitated, confused, but I pushed him forward, and we both bolted. My legs burned as we sprinted down the street, cutting through yards and alleys, trying to lose the man. I could hear his footsteps behind us, methodical and unhurried, like he knew we couldn't escape. We ducked behind a row of hedges, crouching low. My heart pounded so loudly, I was sure he could hear it. I held Ethan close, trying to calm my own breathing. Minutes passed, and then I heard it. Footsteps slowing down, coming closer. He was looking for us. I held my breath, praying he wouldn't find us. The footsteps stopped just on the other side of the hedge. I could hear him breathing, could feel the weight of his presence through the thin barrier of leaves. Then, as suddenly as he had appeared, he turned and walked away. I waited, frozen in place, until I couldn't hear him anymore. Then, cautiously, I led Ethan out of our hiding spot and back toward the main road. But the street was eerily quiet now. The once festive atmosphere had been replaced by an oppressive silence. No kids, no parents, just us. We reached the park near our house, thinking we were safe. But as we made our way through the empty playground, the car appeared again, headlights off, creeping toward us. My heart sank. This wasn't a coincidence. He was hunting us. I grabbed Ethan's hand and ran again, this time toward the thick trees at the edge of the park. We weaved through the woods, the sounds of the car fading behind us. My lungs ached, and my legs felt like they were going to give out. But I couldn't stop. Not until I knew we were safe. We finally reached home, slamming the door shut behind us and locking it tight. I could barely speak, my mind racing with fear and adrenaline. I pulled the curtains closed, checking every window, every lock. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, watching the empty street. Every creak of the house, every gust of wind, made my heart race. I kept expecting to see that car, that man, waiting outside. But the night passed in agonizing silence. The next morning, I told my mom what had happened, but she didn't believe me. "It's just Halloween," she said. "People like to play pranks." But I knew it wasn't a prank. I knew that man had been waiting for us, and I couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't done. Somewhere out there, he was still watching, still waiting. And next time, I wasn't sure we'd be able to run.